Imagine working two jobs, barely scraping by, only to come home to a place you can hardly afford. A place that isn't even yours. Now imagine this isn't a rare story, but the reality for millions of Americans. Tonight we're not just gonna talk about housing. We're gonna talk about hope, dignity, and the question: why does having a safe place to live feel like a luxury when it should be a basic right? As a college student and athlete, I've seen firsthand how financial pressures can weigh on people. But housing affordability extends far beyond personal budgets. It's a systemic crisis. The National Low Income Housing Coalition reports that the United States faces a shortage of 7.3 million affordable rental homes for extremely low income renters. Meanwhile, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development states that over 580,000 people experience homelessness over any given night. According to Pew Research, housing costs have outpaced wage growth by 20% since the year 2000, making home ownership increasingly out of reach for many. And a study from the Urban Institute found that 10.9 million American households are severely cost burdened, spending more than half of their income on housing. These facts underscore a crisis that impacts all, regardless of our background or income level. House affordability affects us all, whether you're a student, a family, or a senior or on a fixed income. According to Pew Research, again, 49% of renters worrying about paying rent. Meanwhile, Harvard Joint Center for Housing Studies reports that housing costs have consistently outpaced incomes, leaving less for essential needs like healthcare and education. This issue isn't distant. It's reshaping communities and limiting opportunities for millions. Housing affordability is a critical issue that affects millions of Americans across all demographics, from students to retirees. As rents soar and wages stagnate, more families and individuals face financial strain, with 49% of renters fearing that they can't afford their rent. This crisis not only limits economic mobility, but also jeopardizes access to healthcare, education, and overall well-being. Immediate policy reforms are necessary to address the shortage of affordable housing and ensure stability for future generations. Today, I'll discuss the severe impact of housing affordability on both individuals and the economy. First, I'll explore how the skyrocketing cost of housing reduces disposable income, leaving families with less to spend on essential goods and services, ultimately hindering economic growth. Next, we'll examine the growing shortage of affordable housing, with over 7 million rental homes lacking for low-income renters, and how zoning laws and construction costs are exacerbating this crisis. Finally, I'll address the broader economic consequences, how high housing costs weaken purchasing power, slow consumer spending, and deepen economic inequality, creating a ripple effect that affects every sector. As housing prices rise, many renters and homeowners find themselves with less disposable income to cover essential expenses like food, healthcare, and transportation. According to the National Low Income Housing Coalition, millions of renters face housing costs that consume the majority of their income, leaving little room for other vital needs. The Harvard Joint Center for Housing Studies reports that 1 in 4 renters in the U.S. spend over 50% of their income on housing. This disproportionate burden exacerbates financial instability and makes it more difficult for families to save or invest in education, healthcare, or retirement plans. The financial strain caused by high housing costs also has a ripple effect on the economy. When individuals and families have less to spend on goods and services, overall consumer spending drops, which in turn slows economic growth. A lack of affordable housing reduces the purchasing power of millions of Americans. While high housing costs impact household budgets, the shortage of affordable housing is at the heart of the crisis, driven by restrictive zoning laws and rising construction costs. The U.S. is grappling with a significant shortage of affordable rental homes, especially for extremely low-income renters. According to the National Low Income Housing Coalition, there is a shortage of over 7 million affordable rental homes nationwide, leaving millions without access to an adequate home. Zoning laws and high construction costs have significantly contributed to the housing shortage. These regulations limit the supply of affordable housing units by restricting where new development can occur and increase the cost of construction. making it harder for developers to build affordable homes. As a result of this shortage, competition for the available homes was intensified and has created an environment where those with lower incomes are priced out of the market and worsening inequality and marginalizing vulnerable communities. While the shortage of affordable housing is a critical issue, it also has far-reaching economic consequences, further limiting consumer spending and deepening inequality. As a result, people have to cut back on essentials like healthcare, food, and education, which reduces overall consumer spending. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development reports that many households now spend more than half of their income on housing, leaving very little room for necessary expenses. Reduced customer spending due to high housing costs has also broader economic effects. While people are financially squeezed, they're less likely to contribute to local and national economies through spending on goods and services. Housing affordability impacts more than just household budgets. The rising cost of housing limits spending on essentials and weakens the economy, a severe shortage of affordable homes worsening by zoning laws. Housing affordability is a growing crisis affecting millions, from students to seniors, with skyrocketing rents and stagnant wages, leaving the families financially strained. The shortage of affordable housing is a deepening inequality and threatening economic stability. And it's not just a financial issue, it's a societal crisis that demands urgent attention. Without immediate action, we risk further destabilizing communities and weakening our economy, which in return, we need to make sure that we vote right and vote for people that are willing to help grow the economy and have the basic right to own a house and to further develop it. Thank you.